2023 MPO Executive Committee meeting to order and ask for motion and approval on the agenda.
Move.
A second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Abstentions. Motion carries. Item 3 is the vote on the approval of minutes.
Move approval. Second.
Motion second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Abstentions. Motion carries. Being late.
No, the app's not working.
Item 4 is consent to vote on the contracts and expenses.
Yeah, thank you. We have one item for your approval today. We've been doing a lot of work with contact management and doing it through software that really doesn't allow for a good way to track contacts and make sure everything's up to date the best way they could be and be efficient. So we've worked with a couple different avenues, and I came up with a company called Grancius. I'm not sure I'm saying that correctly. To set up a contact management that will really alleviate some staff time on keeping those contacts up to date and organized in a good manner. There's an initial setup fee and then an annual subscription fee. Total amount is $8,900 for this request. We recommend approval. We do have budget for software that would cover this in our current budget. Happy to answer any questions.
All right. Questions?
Yeah, quick one. Hey Todd, does that setup fee include all the necessary training for staff?
Yes.
Thank you.
Is it an annual fee of 6,000 each year?
Yes, sir.
The question, is that comparable to what we've been paying? Or is that more?
We haven't been paying anything.
We've been using Excel spreadsheets, which doesn't work very well.
Probably not.
A question for you, is this something that other organizations in the area use?
This,
And you probably said that when I was walking in, and then apologize.
I can speak to that a little bit. We did look at a few alternatives. We landed on Gov Delivery, which is the product being purchased through Granicus. It's used by every state agency in the state of Iowa. So we talked to Iowa DOT, they use it, they like it.
Oh, they use it, then it's worthless for sure, right, Mark? Never mind.
But a lot of other.
Mark says it's great.
Okay. One of the really big benefits is not only can we add contacts from the back end for committees like this, but also have opt-in, you be able to opt into it. So if you have a constituent who wants all of your MPO policy committee meeting agendas, it's very easy, will be very easy for them to sign up and
Gotcha.
handle itself.
Perfect, thank you.
Move approval.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Abstentions. Motion carries. Item 5, report and vote on the fiscal year 27 STBG funding recommendation. Dylan?
Thank you. If you go to the next slide, as we annually do, we solicit projects and the funding subcommittee has made a recommendation for how to allocate the roughly $16 million in STBG funds for federal fiscal year 27. That $16 million in funding available compares with about $39 million of requests that we received. So the funding subcommittee had a tough job of trying to decide who receives funds. If you go to the next slide and in your agenda packet, you'll see how these funds are allocated or recommended to be allocated across the different projects. So for system capacity, there's 2 projects, the Grimes Southeast 37th Street project, as well as Joaquin Zalsa's road replacement. That totals $1 million. Go to the next slide, you will see the major reconstruction and replacement. This is where a majority of the projects are found. I won't read every single one of those there, but you can see which communities are recommended to receive projects and which projects those are. Go to the next one. We've got 2 more categories of system optimization, which had 3 projects, as well as the bridge program, which had another project there for the city of Des Moines. And then finally, transit, as we normally do, allocate funds to them for bus replacement and B-cycle replacement, and then the MPO's traditional TMA program with what's remaining. If you go to the final slide here, you can see the kind of how these categories break down with what our targets are according to our long range plan, as well as what was actually allocated. So we're pretty much in line there. Larry's were higher, but that's because we didn't receive a lot of project request in the system authorization category, for example. So that's a recommendation from the funding subcommittee. If there's questions about that, we're happy to try to take them. Otherwise, this is before you for people.
Dylan, do you have an easy way to see or a list of those that did not make this list?
We can send that out to you. I don't think we had it in the agenda packet.
Yeah,
That would get that. to you.
Okay.
I think there was just a couple of communities that did not receive anything. Polk City being one. I don't remember what the other one was.
The other one was West Des Moines, and they asked for that project to be removed. They funded a different one, their other project got funded instead of both projects.
So isn't it just the three that are listed on here? Windsor, West Des Moines, Windsor Heights, and Polk City that
Yes.
wasn't awarded anything?
Yep, you're right. That is.
Those are the three?
Yep. Correct.
There's no one else that didn't get awarded. These are all the
Yep,
applications,
these
right?
are all the applications.
I'll move approval.
Second. Motion by Gatto, second by Rivas, all in favor, any just further discussion? Sorry. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Abstentions, that motion carried. Item 6 is the report and vote on the fiscal year 22 excess funding, Dylan.
Thank you. Another item that the STB funding subcommittee took up was allocating excess funding back from fiscal year 2022. To do this, they looked at the balances that were left over from 21 as well as 22. And you can see there on the screen in the packet that in 21, there was a negative balance because we allocated more than what we ended up actually receiving. But that was made up for with what was in 22 with the excess funds there. So with that $1.2 million roughly left over, they've recommended allocating it to 3 different projects, which are on the next slide. Go to that. So those projects would be the Ankeny West First Street widening, the Moines Douglas Avenue corridor, and then Polk City's North Third Street. So you can see Polk City, even though they didn't get something in the item we just talked about, their project wasn't funded. They received funding here as well, so they are happy about that.
That's for a different project.
It's for a different project, but
Okay.
yeah, they're just happy to receive something.
Yeah.
So that's before you for a recommendation. If there's any questions, happy to take them.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Abstentions, motion carried. Item 7 is a report and vote on the comprehensive safety action plan request for proposals. Bill?
Thank you. As you remember, the MPO received $800,000 for the Safe Streets for All program from the USDOT. Our plan is to hire consultant services to carry out that planning effort. So we've developed a request for proposal. The link to that request for proposal was in the agenda packet. If you go to the next slide, we can walk through the highlights of that and the various tasks that are in it. One of the main tasks, which is task 1, we stakeholder and public engagement. That's why we requested as much money as we did. We wanted a pretty robust public engagement process. So that's going to be a heavy emphasis of the planning work that the consultant will carry out. Then there's data analysis, data collection, developing a countermeasure toolbox, identifying implementation plan steps, creating a Vision Zero toolkit, and then actually creating the action plan and setting ourselves up for the implementation grant that will follow. Those are roughly the 8 steps that we've identified. Our plan, if you go to the next slide there, in terms of getting this out, would be to issue this right after assuming it's approved by the funding or by the full policy committee next week. We'd send out that RFP, have proposals due in May, and then go from there as far as interviews, selection, and get the contract awarded and work underway by September. We took this to the tech committee. They reviewed it. They're happy with what's in there. If there's questions from this group, we're happy to take them. Otherwise, ask for your approval of this.
Are you gonna work with the stuff we already have for Vision Zero?
Yes. Yep, that's in there to work with the city of Des Moines and not
Yeah.
duplicate.
And we did probably a lot what you're.
Yeah.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Abstentions, motion carries. All right, item 8 is report and vote on the passenger transportation plan final draft.
All right, so this is the 5-year update that is required by the DOT, so the passenger transportation plan and permitting plan that works with all the other MCOs in the area.
Carl, can you come up to the podium so I think, so people online can see the whole thing?
Yeah, so the passenger transportation plan, this is the final draft that is required by the DOT. It's developed with the transportation advisory groups throughout the region, and we prioritize clear and organized transportation information about all the resources available in the region, as well as focusing on externalities affecting the mobility impaired. And we recently wrapped up public comment on April 1st. Take any questions with your approval.
All right,
Move approval.
Second.
motion a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Abstentions, that motion carries. Item 9 is the report and vote on the water trails, bill grant approval, payment approval, Todd.
Yep, thank you. We recently received our pay application number 4 from Snyder Associates. That payment application was reviewed by Polk County and received their concurrence. The amount of this pay application is $623,537.24. Of that total, right now, just under 60,000 is a reimbursable expense. The remaining is stored materials, mainly rock. We cannot get reimbursed for those materials until they're actually used on the project. So that's why only the 60,000 is reimbursable. Go to the next slide real quick. Just to refresh, and for some of the newer members, this is kind of the flow chart we go through to look at these reimbursement processes. It's maybe a little small to read, and we'll get this out to everyone. But Snyder and Associates works with the contractor to develop the pay estimate. It's then reviewed by Polk County, make sure they're in concurrence with it, and forwards to the MPO for review. And we look at it, make sure everything is agreeable. If nothing is, if we find something amiss, we go back to Polk County and Snyder to review it. Assuming we're good with it, we get approval to pay that item. Next slide. We pay the contractor for that work. The contractor deposits that payment, and the funds clear the MPO account. Then the MPO can prepare the build grant reimbursement and submit that to the Iowa DOT. The DOT reviews that request and approves for payment back to the MPO. If they don't, we work with the DOT to find what any issues there are. Assuming that it's good, the DOT then sends funds to the MPO, and that money gets put back into the account for the project. The Iowa DOT then has another step where they go to Federal Highway and request funds from Federal Highway from the build grant back to the DOT. So that's the process of how this happens. With that, we recommend approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right. Thank you, Todd. Any questions on this? Again, this will also then go to policy as well. Next.
Correct.
So we're just recommending here today.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Motion a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Abstentions. That carries. Item 10 is the report and vote on the approval authority for the water trails build grant payments.
Yes, thank you. As all you remember, last month, we had to have a special meeting to make a payment because of the policy not meeting on March, and they had a rather large pay request. So we thought it might be beneficial to have the policy committee on those months where they do not meet, give the executive committee the authority to approve those payments, just so we can keep the payments in a timely fashion. It would follow the same process as I described before, where Snyder would develop the pay estimate with the contractor, be reviewed by Polk County, and so on. So it would go through that same process. It would just give the executive committee the authority to approve those payments in March, July, and December. Be happy to answer any questions, would recommend approval. And this will go to policy as well.
Todd, can we send that out to the full policy? Just for
Yep.
informational? So,
Yep.
Good idea.
I think it'd be good. Give them at least some heads up that this is if we do have that situation, which is only gonna happen maybe 2 more times in July or December, but at least give folks a heads up that this will be potentially approved by executive month.
Yeah,
But
executive, well, the project's going to continue for several years, so I
Yes.
think it is advisable in the policy deal that exec did review this and exec approved it, so that they're aware an expenditure was made.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I was just gonna add, does that require a change to our policy here? Or is it just a carve out? or-
The current policy that we have about what exec can do in months where policy does not meet limits the exec's authority to 50,000, I want to say.
Right, that sounds right.
So that would be the exception that being carved out here.
Only
So for water.
only for water trails.
Only for the water.
Exactly.
All right, we have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Abstentions. All right, that carries. Item 11 is report and vote on the EPA climate pollution reduction grant opportunity. Allison.
Thank you. As I brought to you in March, there is an opportunity for the Des Moines Metro for a phase one planning grant for climate pollution reduction. And so we were waiting at that time when we met then to see what the state did. The state did end up passing on it. And so now there is a decision to be made on whether this MFA wants to move forward with it. Since the state did pass, the $3 million that was allocated to the state would go be split to $1 million for each of the three largest MSAs, Cedar Rapids, Des Moines, and then the Quad Cities. And then each MSA needs to assign a lead agency to be the grant recipient. I always do this wrong. Okay. So this is what our MSA looks like. We are the MSA is much larger than the MPO boundaries. However, you know, we do have our circular connections. The outlier here is Guthrie, where I don't personally have any connections, but that's something that we can reach out with an olive branch and say, hey, please come along and with us as well. But I wanted to give you an idea of the scope of the geography. And along these same lines, if the community did not want to participate, that does not mean the whole MSA can't move on together. If the community doesn't want to participate, they just don't do that. There we go. All right, so this is a long list, but this is what they really want to do. They want to understand the current and future greenhouse gas emissions, prioritize some actions to reduce them, accelerate decarbonization across multiple sectors, develop coordinated plans and collaborate closely among the entities within the region. Obviously, one of the heavy hitting things here is leveraging all the federal dollars that are coming down, especially through the IIJA and then the Inflation Reduction Act as well, and using those through this process and through implementation of it. They want to stimulate technology and increase different practices and make it durable, replicable, and something that could provide certainty as we move forward in these reductions so that it can be replicated across the nation. So one of the other things, there's a real emphasis, as you know, the Biden administration adopted Justice 40, so there's a really strong emphasis on low income and disadvantaged populations being included and really in the front of this planning process. And of course, tracking and what is going on and how these things, how any reductions would benefit the region. So that's a long and short of that paragraph. You can read the whole thing if you'd like, but that's the basics from there. So I just want to give you a snapshot. So last year, we completed the greenhouse gas inventories for all MPO member communities, which you see there on the right. And that is just a snapshot of 1 year. So on the left-hand side, I also included the 10-year snapshot from the City of Des Moines Climate Action Plan that really kind of shows, you know, more of a trend line. And I would expect that a trend line like that would come out of this planning process for all of our communities as well as the whole MSA. So on the right here, you'll see the matrix of what is included in each phase. So this is phase one of a larger grant, but there are phases within this planning piece. So phase one of the planning piece would be a priority climate action plan. This really would be looking at things we can do right away, get on the ground, what's already going on, how can we bolster it, how can we move it forward? And that would be due in early 2024, which I just learned would be March 1st. Then the second phase would be a comprehensive climate action plan for the whole MSA, including everything, industry, electricity, even waste management, land use, agriculture and things like that, all the way down. And that would be about a 2-year process. And I believe 2024 is a deadline for that. And then typical with federal programs, there is a status report throughout the process, but then after the process as well. So how are we meeting these mission goals? How are we putting these implementation dollars into work? And so phase 2 of the overall grant is that implementation grant eligibility. And that is to be eligible for that, your community needs to be in one of these plans, to be represented in one of these plans. So on the right, you can kind of see what is required. So for the priority climate action plan, greenhouse gas inventories, the Metro, I did talk to the EPA, since we did the 2019 greenhouse gas inventories for the FPO communities recently, that would be fine to do 2019 for the rest of them and kind of keep that same baseline. And that would just be an update. Looking at quantifying the reduction measures, there's benefits analysis built in through all of this, whether that's social, economic, health, infrastructural, resilience, and all that thing. Of course, required across the board is the low income and disadvantaged incorporation and consideration, as well as the benefits analysis there. And then one of the bigger things that will take a little time outside my purview is really looking at the authority that our MSA or any of our jurisdictions have to do these practices or to reduce these things. And there's another number of other things that would be encouraged in that first phase, but really something to think about as we go forward is really the workforce. Workforce is going to be a large piece of that comprehensive climate plan, that second phase there. And of course, during the status report, they want all sorts of stuff, and we're encouraged to continue to update for greenhouse gas inventories and emissions reporting and things like that. No, that's it, right? No, Bill. That's it, right? That's it, Bill.
Doesn't like it.
It doesn't. So eligibility, one, I'm sorry I didn't put it on the slide, but there is no local match on this. This is $1 million, hand it over. So but eligibility, there's staffing, contracts and things like that. The meetings, the planning, convening, all that public outreach and education would be included. Sub-awards to municipalities and other organizations to do some work. Modeling and analytic costs are going to be probably one of the higher dollar pieces. You can also buy the software and tools to do it in-house. Studies, assessments, evaluations, all of the above. Capacity building and training of staff is also built from there because this is a new area for a lot of jurisdictions. Full supplies, incidentals, and things like that. So just to kind of give you the width and breadth of what's on there. So if you staff is seeking input and direction on how we want to move forward. When this was brought forward in March, one of the questions that I was asked to get answered from the EPA is, can this plan be strictly transportation? And the answer is no. So this plan would have to be more than just transportation. It'd have to deal with housing and commercial and agriculture and things like that. So I wanted to bring that answer back to you. But now that the state has officially declined, there's a decision that needs to be made, and it's on the table for you at this time. I will tell you that the next steps, once this decision is made, is submitting a letter of intent, which is quite simple. It will require letters of recommendation or letters of support from jurisdictions throughout the region. It does not mean that those jurisdictions have to sign on right away, but that would be required by April 28th. And then there is a larger application that requires a rough budget, a work plan, and other pieces that would be due by May 31st. And then they'll announce the awards over the summer, and then the expenditure of the funds should be able to start in July or August of 2023. So with that, I think that's my last slide, and I would open this up for question, discussion. This is a lot.
All right, thank you, Allison.
Of course.
Questions for us?
Mr. Chair, not a question, and I appreciate Allison doing a lot of the legwork and her expertise in this, and you know, this kind of falls back into the whole strategic planning for transportation and her transparency of letting us know that it's not just transportation related. I appreciate that. I think that there could be a home, and I'm glad Mr. Norris is here, because we've had conversation, and I say we as in Scott Sanders, myself, Mayor County and others have talked with Polk County and I won't speak for you, but I'll let you jump in, but I think that they're willing to be the lead agent and to do this and to hire the folks that they need to do and do the staff, but I'll let you follow up down like.
No, thanks, Joe. Yeah, so like Allison, we've been watching this as well. And when the state turned it down, we moved into action with our climate action team to thinking we'd pursue this as well. Reaching out to all the 6 counties and all the entities to see if they're interested in Polk County being the lead agent for this for the MSA. Reached out to City of Des Moines. They showed interest in having us do it. So then I reached out to Allison and let her know what we were thinking. So that's at least where Polk County is at. We are willing to and intended on jumping up and coordinating for the MSA. And I saw on your agenda here, so that's why I thought, well, maybe I better pop over here and see if you have questions, and any resistance to that. If not, Polk County is willing to move forward with being the physical agent, the coordinator for this project, and reaching out to all the in collaboration with the work Allison's been doing. Really seeing if Allison, the MPO, could coordinate with your current expertise and contacts, the application. And then when and if it gets announced, it would be Polk County being the organizer, if you will, for lack of a better term, of the project.
John, have you reached out to the other counties already? You said, or not?
We have not yet. This all just came about in the last probably 72 hours. We realized that, well, one first last Friday, this we learned that the state was going to turn down the grant. So that would be the next step in conjunction with Allison to reach out to the other 5 counties in the MSA.
Well, with all due respect, I mean, I think the MPO was already reached out to some of those, I mean, as Allison said, reached out and done some of those things, but why wouldn't the MPO be the more natural place to do this on behalf of our entire area?
Because it's not in our strategic plan, Mr. Chair. This is not.
John, Joe, I haven't asked him, John.
Well,
Can I just hear?
yeah, you can ask him, but I'm gonna jump in and say that's a silly question at this time. It's not in our strategic plan. It's not part of it. There's gonna be so many more additional costs and staffing. We're gonna get ourselves in the same boat that we're in with MIPA. I mean, but yeah, you can keep asking the questions, but I mean, we've got an agency willing to jump in, spend the money, hire the staff, do what they need to do. I mean, I think that's a no-brainer, but yeah, you go ahead, jump in, ask some more questions.
And I'll just clarify.
Well, thank you, with all due respect, I am sharing.
I understand you are.
All right.
I'll just clarify that the MPO, until there's any direction here, has not reached out to any of those counties.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is pretty practical, having just really, I think we were both watching it till we saw what the state did on Friday. And then that was and then we were gonna begin reaching out, so we reached out to Allison first, and realized it was on the agenda and you guys were talking about it, so. And I should be clear, I mean, the federal money will pay for the staffing and the program costs for this, during this, what is it, 1.5 to 2 year period?
Oh, almost up to, 2.5, 3 years.
So there'd be no extra cost for the MPO either. I mean, this would be, the cost would be the same Polk County as it would be for
Yeah,
MPO.
it's just, it's really down to a question, but Tom had requested we pursue this because I think some of this stuff that Joe just said was outside the scope of what they saw the MPO and again, that all followed after we already were watching this and gonna move forward, irrespective of it, not knowing the MPO was working on it as well.
So it's a question. The question before us today is whether or not the MPO wants to move forward with this. And that's the policy. Is the executive committee gonna make a decision today to put it on the policy? Because frankly, I think it's a big waste of everyone's time and money to do this. So whether Polk County wants to pick it up, if we pass it with them, Ankeny still gonna be a no. Likely, I don't know, maybe we'll get outvoted, but to me, this seems like a bunch of money we're gonna chase for something that's just gonna penalize stuff that the state passed on it. Couple years, there's gonna be another flavor, another administration, this money's gonna dry up, and we'll move on to do something else. So personally, I think we just vote it down. Polk County wants to do it, they can, but I mean, I think the question for the MPO today is, or next 2 weeks, is do we want to do it?
Well, that is the question, Mark.
So-
This would be a recommendation to the policy committee, and then we'll have the policy committee either way.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with Mark. I agree 100% with what you said.
You know, what really concerns me about things like this is you chase a whole bunch of money, you accomplish absolutely nothing. At the end of 2 years, you have a bunch of staff that you hired. And then you go, what am I gonna do with these staff? And most organizations love to keep staff. I'm not just saying this one, all of them. And I would love for Polk County to have to deal with that and not this one. Because man, they love to keep staff and find stuff for them to do. So,
Well, that's why, I guess one of my point is that I think we have the existing staff. I mean, Polk County's gonna have to hire staff. Isn't that true or not?
Well, we would hire staff, but I think what I would suggest we do is, as Alice complete the application process, she's working on it. As soon as we know that they will allocate the money for the MSA, we would then bring Allison over on staff to run this county. And she run the MSA. By no means, I don't want this to come off as, the whole county's not trying to corner this go. That's why the city was, it's just needs somebody who would be the agent to be the recipient of the funds and work with the 6 county region.
So Des Moines, Polk County are essentially trying to split up the funds. Is that-
Split up the funds.
That's what Joe, I mean, there's Bob. No, I'm gonna say, I didn't tell Joe tonight.
This,
Joe, I'm talking.
yeah, go ahead.
I
didn't like your comment.
Well,
Okay.
let me respond.
Go ahead.
Let me talk and you can respond. I mean, there've been discussions here and that's what I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to figure out where the discussions have been and where this is going. That's all. I'm just trying to figure it out.
Look, I think the discussion's been very transparent here today. Polk County is willing to take this on. We've got an issue coming further down the agenda of an assessment increase for us. If Polk County takes one of their staff members and gives them a full time, all of a sudden we just saved probably $100,000, which now we're short if we get rid of MIPA. So if you don't look at the big picture, Bob, and you're just looking like we're trying to corner some dollars, I'm not sure what else to tell you. There's an opportunity here for Polk County to take this program on, also to solve another one of our problems that we've got as we go further down this agenda. I don't know how else to spell it out. I mean, if that's not clear enough and solves everybody's problem in this room, I don't know what else to say. We can vote on it. I vote to deny it and I'll make a motion that we don't bring this to the policy committee. How's that sound?
It's gotta go to policy one way or the other.
Why?
Because it's
It's not an opportunity. If the executive committee agrees that it's not an opportunity and we are transportation based, it does not have to go to the policy committee. You're wrong.
So, the only thing
This is Russ Trimble. Before I can't get a word in, I thought I would take.
Russ, can I stop you just a second? Stephanie just started to talk. I just was gonna give her the chance to
Yeah.
talk and then I can turn it over. to you.
Okay. All right, sorry.
only thing Bonnie said that I would have an objection to, if Polk County managed this. It makes sense that Allison would complete the application, but if the program goes through, you had said, hire Allison to run the program. That is absolutely, that would not be acceptable to me, because if the reason we turned this down is because we didn't want MPO staff working, to outcompete private firms that might take that contract. Or have MPO staff working on anything that could possibly be non-transportation related. I don't even want to go into that debacle. So, agree with you all the way up until contracting with the MPO. I mean, it should be an open bidding process, and a private company should, or individual should be willing to take that on. That's all.
Yeah, I probably overspoke there. Alice would be a logical choice to do it. We haven't made any decision on that.
Right, obviously, yeah. Okay. I'm done, Russ.
Go ahead, Russ.
Okay, I appreciate it. I guess, not weighing in on whether or not we should go for the grant, but just who should do it. I think the questions I have is, number one, why does Polk County want to do this? Number two, what are the other MSAs doing? Who's applying on their behalf if they're applying? Cedar Rapids, I think you said, and Davenport. And then the logical discussion here would be, what are the pros and cons of the MPO doing it versus the pros and the cons of Polk County doing it? It seems to me like whoever does it there's going to be a cost associated with it. There's going to be FTEs associated with it. Whether MPO does it or Polk County does it, that's all going to be the same. I guess the question is, if there is a payment, if the grant doesn't cover 100% of the staffing costs and whatever costs are incurred, which it sounds like it does, but if it doesn't, then which taxpayers are sharing in that cost? If Polk County does it, all the taxpayers in Polk County share in that cost. If the MPO does it, I believe Dallas County is part of the MPO. And there are probably other entities that would share in that cost. So I think that's the way logically this needs to be looked at, is what are the pros and cons of having each one of them do it? And I am interested in why Polk County is volunteering to do this, why they want to do this so bad. But logically, who should be the one to do this, assuming that we are going to do it? I think we need to look at those pros and cons.
You're presupposing that someone is going to do this for sure, or that it should be done. And I'm not convinced that it even needs to be moved forward at all.
No,
So-
no, I'm not, you apparently didn't listen to me, Ted. I'm not presupposing that anybody's doing anything. I'm saying if we're gonna do something, assuming that we're gonna do something, if we're going to do that, who is the logical entity to do it? What are the pros and cons of Polk County doing it? What are the pros and cons of the MPO doing it? What are the costs associated with each? Who's going to be sharing in that cost? Which taxpayers? I think that's the way it needs to be looked at, rather than just having this, tug of war between I'm going to do it, you do it, I'm taking it. I don't understand the turf battle here. I guess, is this in the, is Polk County's strategic plan?
John, you want to respond to that?
Yeah, certainly. Listen, to me, I find this really comes down to my conversation with Tom and you couldn't be here today. Is this something that the MPO is beyond the scope of what he envisions the MPO doing, which it is. The issue of taxpayer and the funding, I mean, this is going to be funded by federal dollars. The $1 million for the climate action plan, or whatever that title is, the funds that will follow it, which are really what this does, is open the door for significant federal money for implementing climate or emissions reductions measures throughout the MSA. We've had a climate action team working on reducing our footprint for 2 years now in the county, which has been very successful. We really want to see this move forward across the region, which is why when we watched this and saw the state turn down the money, we didn't want that fall through the cracks for the opportunity for Iowans. And so we stepped up and said, let's figure out how to get this done, which is going to how we found out that the MPO was looking at it. I raised it with Tom. He said we should continue to try and do this because it's beyond the scope of what he envisions the MPO is what we'd be doing.
Go ahead, Dean. You agree.
I agreed a little bit with Ted.
Wait a minute, Russ, Dean's talking.
Well, I guess I appreciate, John, I think that was you. I appreciate that explanation. I just think, if we're going to do this, we need to look at the pros and cons of Polk County doing it versus MPO doing, to decide who's the proper entity to do it. I don't think it would hurt to see what the other MSAs are doing it. Is their MPO doing it? Is it a county that's doing it? Are they not doing it at all? And then, of course, the question that Ted brought up, the question that was brought up by other people in the group, Mark and others. Do we even do it at all? Are there even the votes to do it? So that's it. That's all I have. I can't vote today. I'm just here to fill in for Matt McKinney, who unfortunately couldn't be here because he had to go to a funeral. So
I can answer a couple of the mayor's questions real quick. As far as the state of Iowa, Cedar Rapids, the city at this point is looking to do it. They could do it together with the county, but that is still in discussions, but their MPO will not be doing it. And in Davenport, so far the Bi-State Commission has been looking at it, but they are not primarily just an MPO. They are a regional commission rather than solely an MPO.
Okay, thank you, Allison. Dean?
I back up to what Ted and Mark both said. I think we're just trying to decide if we should do it or not. And I'm always suspect when you're just chasing dollars, federal dollars, and what outcome are you trying to get out of this? Well, at the end of the day, you do all these studies, you pay a whole bunch of people money, you hire staff, you got all this staff, all this time into it, you got to study, and then you put restrictions on businesses. make costs go up for everybody in your community, and you usually end up with nothing at the end of it, but a bunch of studies. And so my fear is there's a good reason why the state turned it down. I'd love to know more details of why that, and then why are we all chasing it so badly? What outcomes are you planning to get out of it?
I think the premise, Dean, and the reason 46 of the 50 states are moving forward with it is there's a serious concern about climate change and what action we take to address it. That doesn't get addressed without planning and then implementation.
So what outcomes are you planning to get out of this?
Pardon?
What outcomes are you planning to get out of it?
The outcomes are to assess what are the most cost-effective ways in order to take measures to begin to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions to address the issue I consider of our time, but addressing climate change.
Who's we?
Pardon?
Who's we?
So I, not we.
When you say we, I assume you're talking Polk County.
Oh, yeah, so what we're doing with our climate action team right now is
So you take this money and you would do something for Polk County, but you wouldn't enforce any of your.
no, what we're doing in
Ideas.
Polk County is separate and distinct from this. Now, obviously, what we've done today and what Allison's done today with the emissions assessment will help inform this greatly as to how to move forward with planning. It would be to engage everyone in the Sioux County region that wants to be a part of this process.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, to me, I'd say partly too, it has nothing to do with really, transportation is just a small piece of it. It's such a larger thing. I say let you have it. I don't think MPO wants any part of it, in my opinion.
This transportation like 27% of your emissions.
So transportation comes up as the, is one of the highest. So yeah, 26% for 2019, but I will say the transportation across the board, if you look at the 10-year in the city of Des Moines, that's the one, you can see Mid-Americans is going down. Transportation will be a focus of it. However, it's not gonna be the only thing that is in the plan. And so that's something to consider.
I said that I sent a letter out to all the metro managers on Wednesday. Again, it's on your later agenda, is we are applying for the federal grant for EV charging stations. And, Indianola responded, or responded, and several other cities in the region. So because our grant is enhanced by more people applying. So we opened the door and said, anybody wants to join our application, it enhances it for all of us. And so we're going to be submitting a grant for electric vehicle charging stations throughout the area, even outside of the boundaries of Polk County, because it enhances the grant. So we are addressing some of the transportation issues even, again, before we even saw this, and we're looking at this issue.
To your point, if the MPO did do this, the salary, Allison's salary, which she's currently employed with the MPO, would be paid out of this program, and that would also, if you have the concern about the assessment, we'd have the funds from this if MPO were to be the successful agency to pay out toward the Allison's salary.
Yeah, but then we would lose Allison for everything else that she's doing, right? I mean,
No, not, she also has capacity, I mean, she wouldn't be working on this 100% here, she doesn't currently do that 100%.
based on what I saw, it'd be pretty darn close.
I think there's a motion on the table. How about we
I
just
don't,
vote?
I haven't heard of it.
I made the motion, he seconded. I'm not sure if you're not paying attention, Bob, but we should vote it. Oh, are you resigning?
Well, you apparently been chair, Joe, so why don't you take over?
Okay.
You're the fucking chair.
Oh, well, that's a good way to put it.
Oh, I guess.
So, Vice Chair, we have a motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion?
It was a second. Can I ask a question?
Mark Holman, second.
Are you resigning your?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, good. That's good.
Hey, we just, point forward, we just maybe take 10 minutes.
Great.
Let's just all,
We're gonna raise it in 10 minutes.
Sounds good. I mean, can we act like freaking adults?
Well,
let's.
Hey, listen,
Don't
if
raise
the
the
motion was on the table,
Work both ways.
Let's calm down, let's calm down.
Yeah.
Scott, what was the motion? Bob was asking whether we could.
Well, that's what
I didn't understand.
All right, I apologize. I apologize.
resuming after a short break.
We will resume after a short recess. Now we're gonna resume. All right, so Joe, could you please restate your motion for this? We're still on item.
I'll make a motion to deny that the MPO proceeds with applying for this grant opportunity. And that's it.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all in
As
favor, say
stated,
aye.
as stated before, I cannot vote. I'm just here filling in for Matt McKinney, who could not be here. So
All right. John,
I don't have a vote either, but
yeah, no,
I want to make sure it's permissible for Allison to continue to work with the application process.
That was my question.
But
Just the letter of intent. I mean, that's pretty simple. That's a pretty simple letter and then.
only because it's due April 28th.
Right.
And her expertise is invaluable on this, and I would hope that she can continue to work for this process until we get the federal decision, which is likely to come in the next couple of months.
How many hours is it gonna take for her to write the letter? I don't know. Like,
One.
did we in that long?
They actually gave me a nice little form that I can literally fill out. One thing that will take a little bit of time is that there are jurisdictional letters of support, so I'll be emailing likely or John's office.
Maybe John's office.
John's office will be emailing out saying, hey, if you'd like to support this acceptance, then you can write that to the county.
all right. Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
So the motion is to not send this to policy. Is that?
Right, it doesn't go to policy. It was
Correct.
voted down.
All right, just making sure.
It's a yes vote for a no.
Yes to not send it.
Yes, right.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Aye. Any abstentions? That carries. Item 12 is a report on the Mid-Iowa Planning Alliance contract. Again, this is a report only this month. We've had a lot of history and discussion on this as well. You've gotten a lot of information here. I think the upshot is we need to, MIPA is a valuable organization. There's been obviously some debate on where the proper scope is for things here, but I still think, and I personally think, and I think there's just a lot of sentiment that one way or the other, we need to have a soft landing as far as what happens with MIPA if there is a separation of MIPA and MPO. And so that's my thought. And I think there's a plan here to go forward with that. And I want Todd to go forward with more detail. I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. As Bob said, we were having continued discussion about the MPO's contract with MIPA. We have to finalize our budget with the DOT by June 1st. So, next month we'll need to make kind of that final decision on how we approach this. MIPA entered and the MPO entered into a contract back in April of last year. We began our discussions about MIPA back in January of 2020. Our contract basically covers three areas: general office support, including office space and back office administrative support, some supervisory support of the MIPA staff, and then some planning support from MPO planners that are paid for by MIPA. Our contract requires a 60-day written notice by either party to terminate. The full timeline of the MPO MIPA discussions was included in your packet. Next slide. Kind of outlines all the steps that we went through during that two-year process or 18-month process. The MPO staff are primarily focused on MPO transportation activities. That does include some hours for SERPTA and a little bit for MIPA support activities, supervising the back office support and a little planning assistance. You can see the percentages on there as well. There are two MIPA staff members that are housed at the MPO, one directly hired by MIPA, that's Caleb. And then the other was one staff member hired by the MPO for the contracted housing assistance. As we've transitioning those housing contracts, which is already started and near complete from the MPO to MIPA, that staff member would go to MIPA completely. Next slide, please. Budget impacts for the contract. MIPA pays the MPO for personnel costs, that's the salary and fringe for the MPO staff hours used on MIPA activities. Whether that's the back office things, the supervisory or any planning support. They also pay a portion of the MPO's office overhead, indirect costs, part of the rent, insurance, et cetera. And then they pay an administrative fee for any MPO personnel costs that are charged to a contract. For the fiscal 24 budget, hold on, that total value is around $93,000. With MPO in the budget, our fiscal year 24 balance ends in a positive. Without it, ends in a negative. Next slide. So we just wanted to get your comfort level on the activities that the MPO is performing under the existing contract. Again, that general office support, office space accounting, payroll, those kind of back office things. Some supervisory support for the MIPA staff, annual reviews, hiring, firing with consultation of the MIPA board, and then any planning support that some additional effort that is needed that they contract with MPO for. I think there's one more slide. Nope, sorry, that's it. So kind of where we're at. Happy to answer questions or have further discussion.
Question. Todd, this is Mark from Ankeny. Question about like MIPA, relatively newer to the exec committee and the MPO participation, but MIPA itself, we've been engaged with them for a year or so, or maybe longer than that, but so they really haven't seen any fruit from their work yet, have we? We haven't really seen much outcome. I mean, it takes a long time for this. When do we believe, when do we believe MIPA can stand on its own? I think we had my understanding of the history here, we'd agreed to help MIPA stand up. That's why we stepped in, help train, stand them up, and then launch them. Is there kind of a roadmap to when we believe they will become, or they can stand on their own?
Yeah, we've got a bit of a roadmap, and that the big issue is with the Economic Development Administration, making them comfortable that MIPA can handle all the administrative side of things. So we've basically outlined a 6 to 12 month timeline of where we think that could happen. And make sure they don't lose their federal grant.
And is that everything, Todd? Is that, I mean, is that like fully standing up on their own after 1 year, or are there different components and parts that, we can offload in a month, and others that, require a little longer?
I mean, you can probably offload some of the things sooner. It's fine, finding office space for them, or it's really the back end stuff of managing the budget, managing the grant, managing payroll, benefits, those things that I think are going to take the longest to make sure they're fully capable of handling those on their own.
But I think someone argued that those are some of the most important pieces to be offloaded, right? Is to
Right.
get that budget component out.
Sure. Go ahead. Are you finished?
Yeah, go ahead, sorry, Dean.
And my biggest concern with it is this supervisory support at the staff. Because when you're controlling, that's the whole control right there. If you're doing annual reviews for staff and you're doing the hiring and firing, they're basically an employee of yours. I mean, you can say they're outside consultants, but if you can hire and fire and annual reviews, you're starting to dance on that line. And so to me, that's the part that I would be. If you want to just rent some office space and pay us back, sure. But what Ted said and the supervisory are the important things to me.
And we can work with the MIPA board to transition that over to them, their executive committee,
When would that happen?
as soon as they're comfortable doing it, which could happen relatively shortly. I can't give you a specific right now, Joe.
But by the end of June 30th?
honestly can't tell you that date yet.
But you're comfortable, you're confident that they could do it, you just don't know when.
Yeah, I think they could with, giving them enough, giving them notice, giving them enough time to get comfortable with it, what we do, making sure they're good with it. I just don't want to say, here you go. We've had some initial conversations with them. So this wouldn't be completely unexpected, but we haven't got into the finite details of this.
So Todd, the 10 cents per capita assessment increase, that's just kind of just to give us a benchmark of what the
Yeah.
cost impact is. You're not proposing
No.
assessment, increase, right? Okay.
No.
And then you
Scale.
have a sense for where you can save that in other parts of our budget?
Yeah, there's a few different areas we could probably work to
Recapture.
recapture some money.
Okay. Thank you.
Equipment, reduce some of the training, travel, that type of thing.
I'm gonna go back to the, not being here when we initiated the MIPA initiative, but I believe we all embraced that, or all the MPO organizations did. We have a business relationship here that we need to honor, because we don't make a very good business partner if we pull the rug out from our organizations that we sign on to. I think, Todd, you're hearing us say, get them to stand them up as fast as they can. Logically, so they stand on their own. I think the region, some people in the region want to see them be successful, see them collect, be successful in their mission. But I think just pulling the rug out, kicking them out the door now probably represents a bad business relationship. But Todd, you tell us you can stand them up in 3, 6, 9 months. They have a plan. It's in writing. We have metrics. We follow through with it. We have setbacks. We have advancements. I think the goal here is, if we ever want to be a good business partner with the next partner that wants to come on board with the MPO, we have a history we have to protect. And as I recall, the board voted to enter into an agreement with MIPA at some point. And I think we need to honor that business relationship and get them launched, get them successful, and get them standing up on their own feet, then separate.
So Todd, have you had any thoughts of where this could be placed? Like, I know Scott Sanders had brought up Iowa State Extension, and our person that ran our economic development team, which is pretty much what this is, she does that now for that group. That might be a good fit to move this whole organization under that umbrella, and it could probably be done fairly quickly. Have you had any thoughts or discussions about that? Because that's true. We need to find them a home. Folks want to still participate in it, then the home would be something similar to that, and that's a regional, organization.
Yeah, we've had a few conversations. Also talked with Story County, Grandview, had some initial conversations with them, and a couple others. So we've started there.
So have you had any discussions with Aaron Olson Douglas?
Not Aaron specifically, no. But I can reach out.
I believe she's in charge of that over there. Now that's her position that she took for Iowa State Extension. Do you not fit? Are you familiar with that program?
Yep.
Do you think that would be a good fit?
It's a potential fit. I'll reach out and ask.
Yeah, I think MIPA is an important piece of this. I think there's value. Separation, Dylan has pointed out to me, separation means a lot of different things to different people. I'm just glad this is on the agenda and we're having this discussion, so we've set some direction. I'm really uncomfortable with what we have done with staff, trying to figure out the unified work plan with all of these scenarios of with, without MIPA, with people, without people, how does that work? And I know it's going to complicate next year's budget picture, because there's going to have to be amendments no matter what decisions made. I'm just glad to see we're having this discussion and getting it out front, and hopefully very shortly we can come to a decision so that we know what our financials and stuff look like for next year. Because right now that, I'll be honest with you, it's up in the air.
Chair. I have a comment from online. Can we read that?
Sure. Is that from Russ? That's all.
It is from Russ, yes. Russ Trimble says, I have to get running, but agree with Mayor Holm. We need to get this up and running and see it through and then work to see if we could find another home for it long term.
Okay, thank you. You know, maybe we've talked maybe a little bit about trying to have an outside facility to help us get this all sorted out too. So, you know, we clearly, I think we have at least some direction now going from this, but I think we need to, there are a lot of alternatives can happen, but I think there's also the sentiment that whatever happens, we want the best long-term result for both organizations. So,
I guess. What would be helpful for us is if we know if it's all, you know, there's these three main categories up there. If the intent is that all three of those, we want all three of those to be transitioned out within the next 6 months to a year. That would be good to know. If it's, you know, Mayor O'Connor said, you know, office space, that's okay. Maybe it's the supervisory needs to go away. So kind of like Councilman Murray just said, there's different scenarios that we can have. We just want to try to start to hone in on which of those is it. Are we okay with some of this and not okay with some of it? And then we'll do whatever the direction is.
Sure.
We just need to, we're hearing different things sometimes. We just want to
Me
make sure
personally, I'm not okay with any of it being housed here or any part of the MPO because it's gonna blend together as long as they're here. And we're always gonna be, yeah, that's not gonna work for me.
Could you visit with MIPA and discuss the three of these and see which ones they feel will be most detrimental to their operation, and then come back with several options, knowing that I think general office support, housing. I mean, I think they're part of their own destiny, creating their own path to stand on their own feet. I think they probably understand, or will shortly understand, or already do, that we want them to stand on their own feet as fast as they can. So what are these that they need to stand on their own, to get out the door? And between the MPO staff and MIPA staff, come up with a plan for them to be successful as fast as possible.
With some dates.
Yeah, with some general dates. We understand there'll be challenges, but you tell us I think, you know, sounds like Joe, Councilman Gatto's not comfortable with them at all, but I think other people have less comfort with the office space, the overlap. What do they need to be successful as fast as possible? Where is their support needed?
they are gonna have this. Go ahead, Todd, sorry. I didn't mean to-
No, you're fine, Bob. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, this will also be part of the agenda for next week for the policy committee, or for our policy committee meeting, so I'd like to get a little bit broader discussion among the entire policy committee on this as well. So,
But if we could have those options, like Mark is saying by then, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, and looking into maybe some of the suggested places that this place can land
Yeah.
and what's the timeline that they would want to take that on. You know, I mean, 3 months ago, you were asking us to rent more space here. And now they're just needing to pay for the space here. So, I mean, it's somewhat that contradicts itself, but that's a totally different discussion. I mean, that's what kind of started all of this, where you wanted to work with the lease agreement and take more space that way. But now we're talking like they have to pay for this space, or we're gonna get our assessment raised. So, I mean, it's just two different things, Todd. I mean.
They have been paying for this space, Joe. And the indirect costs, they pay part of our lease costs currently.
But you wanted to expand the space.
Right, because of the amount of work that they had potentially coming down the pipe, they would need more space. But we decided not to go that, that was fine.
Go ahead.
Okay, I think, and my concern is, I think it's what Joe's saying is, what happens in an organization, you bring MIPA in and you have some extra space. I've got 2 offices, MIPA can use those. Well, then MPO grows and MPO grows, well, we need more space. Well, you're not gonna kick MIPA out as a tenant. MPO keeps growing because we do things like give them staff, give them space, take over their roles. And what happens is there's that creep where MPOs keeps growing because we keep helping somebody else. And we've kind of talked in our strategic plan, let's get back to what we're really about, transportation, those types of things. And so I think that's his concern. I mean, if you have the space and you can lease it to somebody, let's do it. But if you need more space, then don't lease it to somebody, use it yourself.
So with today's teleworking policies and everyone wanting to work remotely, I mean, does NIPA need physical office space, or could they partition part of our conference room, we'll call it the Joe Gatto screaming room over here?
I was gonna say the cry room.
Could they,
For Bob.
could they set up an office in there in the smaller conference room and work out of there until that point in time that they can afford their own facilities? Because I'm hearing facilities or expansion of facilities is a major pushback. So could they work remotely, and could they come in here and just use a conference room as need be? And I don't know they're working, so that's, but
Yeah, well-
I mean, expanding office space is a no, a hard no for the most part.
I think we just need to find them a home. I mean, you need to find an organization that can work with them and give them the tools and the resources to be successful.
Does Polk County have any spaces?
I mean, that's truly what we need. I mean, to see them grow and to do what I think that we all signed up for, which was, let's not leave any money out on the table. I think that's, if you go back and listen to our first discussion where the partnership was recommended and other folks that we had brought up to you, Todd and Gunnar, that, you know, we're leaving money on the table. You know, the pandemic money was sitting out there and we're not getting it because we didn't have this organization put together. Well, I mean, we need to find a home for it. And I don't believe that home is here. I think it's an organization that can help them grow and really do what they were made to do. And that's not here under this organization. So I think the number one goal is to find them a home, find them someone that can work with them and get them where they need to go. And then if communities want to participate, then they can.
I think we have some good discussion. I think, again, this is a report only at this point. We need to carry it forward. I'd like to have some further broader discussion with the policy committee meeting this month as well. So. Any further concluding comments on that? All right, thank you. Item 13 is a report on the charging and fueling infrastructure discretionary grant program. Else.
Okay, so we just want to make you aware, and it was sent out last month, but this is just another notice that there is no out release in March of 700 million available for this cycle. And there are 4 more years of this same program, but it is for charging and fueling infrastructure. And so you'll see that because it's not just EV, you can have the whole slate: hydrogen, natural gas, propane, things like that. A lot of the alternative fuels. A lot of the initial, the National EV Infrastructure Program really focuses on EVs, whereas this is the alternative fuels. So there are certain criteria to meet. Obviously, a lot of these keep coming up with a lot of the Biden passages that came along. So safety, climate change, equity, justice, the workforce, things like that. There are 2 different kinds. So there's a community charging and fueling grant. So I'll call it a community program. It really prioritizes the rural and low to moderate income neighborhoods, where they also have low private parking or high multi-dwelling units. So kind of dealing with this multi-family housing unit charging situation. And those can be contracted with a private entity, whereas the alternative fuel corridor grant or corridor program really is along those AFCs. And so you can't see them very well here, but really the state of Iowa has closed taking in more AFCs. And so it really is our interstate system for now. At the last DOT MPO quarterly meeting, they did say probably in the next 2 years, once they finish out the NEVI build out, which is along those corridors, that they would open up that process again. So in the next 5 years of the cycle, there might be more corridor options out there as well. So I'll just note that this does have an 80-20 match. Applications will be considered and could be awarded under both programs. You don't have to just stick with one. And May 30th, there is a deadline. And as John mentioned earlier, Polk County has been reaching out to multiple communities, seeing if they want to go in on a CFI grant together. And I will say that a lot of the language in most of these programs, especially this one, really do add, so there's coordination across the jurisdictions. And so I would say that, you know, even if you don't go with Polk County and you have a neighbor, definitely talk about that because it does make your application stronger. If there's any data or anything like that, the MPO can provide. Anything that can provide,
TikTok.
yeah, please reach out to me. We have obviously your greenhouse gas, data and things like that, which could contribute to this, but reach out to myself or any of the other staff and we'll help put a letter of support or anything like that together for you. And I believe that's my last slide.
So,
Any questions?
just so I understand, Allison,
Yeah.
John, thank you for here. So Polk County is, what you're doing, you're going after this and you're seeking other jurisdictions to join you in that as well.
We offered it to other jurisdictions if they want to join, because it's mutually beneficial. Again, not knowing Allison is working on this, so I'm gonna be following up with her. I got no skin in where this lands.
Okay.
Other than, we know we've got, we're primarily looking at our public facilities, because many of them lie in that, what's it called?
The low income, low moderate income.
Justice 40, the way it is, yeah. So we should have a very attractive grant, but
You're a way better member than Tom. You're a way better member than Tom.
He's not a member. technically. So individual movers.
One of the focuses in the language of the actual grant program is that they really do want to see that coordination, because what we're trying to do is start creating these networks so that charging anxiety starts to go down. And so a lot of these things you see in the community program are likely gonna be more like destination charging, like a park or something like that, where you go plug in for a little bit, and then those multi-family housing units. Whereas the corridor one really is trying to make sure that, you know, if you're on a 5,000-mile drive across all of the world, I don't know how long the world, but you are able to use that one thing. So they have two different angles there. So you can submit on your own, you can submit collectively, you can submit, you know, amongst yourself, but we just want to let you know it's out there. Also in your agenda packet there, so the webinars, they gave us about a day notice on those. So I did include the recording. If your jurisdiction is interested, there is a recording of the most recent webinar that they had, and there is a little access code in there. But that will give you the most up-to-date information.
Dare I ask this question, but is this something that the MPO could possibly apply for as a region and? Then we,
That's what I was gonna ask. Is that I mean, is that what we're asking? I mean, is that why it's on the agenda?
No, this is just letting all the cities know that it's out
this is
there.
informational. I guess my question is,
MPOs are eligible, but I don't think there's anything that we have internally talked about doing. We are more providing the information to all of your communities so that you guys can move forward if we can assist them.
but if it's a transportation related item. And it would benefit the entire region, is there a way for the MPO to do that and we all join in as the MPO?
That's also an option.
Is there more benefit to doing it that way?
So it didn't say, you know, it talks about intergovernmental and the partnering with neighbors. It didn't say what entity should lead that, but. I mean, I think you can read it, you know, the may shalls, kind of.
Is,
talk it up a little bit.
is this something if the application is due May 30? Can we explore that a little bit more, talk about it in May policy? Or May exec and.
Yeah, and I can try to whip something up, if that's what you'd like me to do over the next couple of days, I can start to whip something up so we can at least have a little bit more widespread report about how the MPO could collectively move forward next Thursday for policy, so we don't have to wait.
That'd be good, yes.
Okay, I'll aim to do
That sounds like a plan.
I mean, this is
Yeah.
exciting. I mean, this is transportation. I mean, this is something that this organization should be focused on, you know.
This is just what we were shouting about.
Yeah, as the dealerships go through and, you know, you hear from the manufacturers, you know, a lot of the models for the cars in 2026, 27, they're done. They're all electric.
Yeah.
And we are not set up, and I don't know, in the rest areas, I mean, Mark, maybe, do they have charging stations in all the rest areas?
No, but I allude, Andy, if you're online, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe, even though I'm not technically working right now, I think the infrastructure bill had established, or DOT in the process of creating those areas in the interstate system that the appropriate mileage for electric state charging stations.
Yeah, so the NEVI puts it every 50 miles with at least 4.
What's a NEVI? Sorry.
That's the program, so that's the National EV Infrastructure, that's really
Okay,
doing the.
sorry.
No, you're fine, talking those words. So that program is really focusing on having every 50 miles, at least 4 superchargers for that interstate system.
Okay.
And so that is kind of separate from this, and those aren't going at rest areas in the state of Iowa because you can't top it on top of federal money, so they will be going to private entities off exits, if that makes sense.
Those like
Maybe
gas stations and things?
Casey's, Walmart's, and Teslas are
Okay.
at the Hy-Vees and things like that. So
Okay.
it would be partnering with those entities, and I believe that's why you see some of the, you're able to finally.
Yeah, I think most new come does put those in.
Yeah.
I mean, whoever takes it on, I mean, this is something that's transportation related and, this could be the focus of the MPO and I wouldn't object to them filing for this grant or however you guys, we can have more discussion and, or work with Bow County, whatever it's gonna take, but this is something that, yeah, this is infrastructure, transportation related. This is good stuff. We should be talking about this.
All right,
So like, yeah, Bob, we've had several committees respond to us. We'll get with Allison and just figure out what we think the best. Vehicle.
Yeah, we can read through the language and see if there's any sort of advantage of one or the other, and we can proceed there.
all right, and then hopefully have some more information for policy.
Yep, that's what I'll do this week.
Okay, thank you, Alice. Item 14 is report on the policies and procedures manual and employee handbook update, Todd.
Yeah, thank you. Documents, some were presented last month. The handbook review committee has been formed. Legal counsel has reviewed the handbook. Actually, they reviewed it twice. After we got some initial comments back and had them look at it again. The committee will begin meeting soon. David Jones was appointed by the chair to chair that committee. So he'll be reaching out to committee members. The policy and procedures manual is under legal review now. We'll also work with the finance subcommittee to review the financial related policies and then identify any needs there. We expect those committees to report back in the next couple months. So.
Thanks, Todd. Any questions? Item 15 is report on the Purple Heart Highway.
Good afternoon. Update on Purple Heart Highway. I am going to keep this brief. We are still in phase 2 pursuing state and federal exemptions that would be needed in order to continue to operate that corridor as it operates today, but with signage showing interstate. Last time I spoke, I was able to share some feedback that we got from the 8 stakeholder groups that we had met with today. In the time in between, I had additional conversations with namely Mike Steenhook of the Soil Transportation Coalition. He reiterated all the feedback that had been given to us previously by Bill Northey. So it continues to be very positive. They're feeling listened to. There's not as much hesitancy and opposition as in the past. They want to push. But we did get confirmation from Mike that they do want to reconvene a second time and provide us more formal feedback. And our position as staff remains to be one in a waiting pattern. We have committed to them verbally numerous times that we are committed to not making any moves without a yellow light. That being said, we did have some early discussions with lawmakers. They invited us for updates on the process. Randy was able to join us for a meeting last week. And I think there is safe to say that there's interest in the issue. There's a commitment to doing this right, that we're walking, not running. And I hope to find support from them conditional on all the conditions of replacement ourselves that we do this together with A. We also are hearing feedback that and this is something that we all know, but we need to continue our engagement with egg stakeholders. And I think probably once we get more formal feedback from the stakeholder group that we've been working with, we'll go beyond that to try to do some more work with egg stakeholders just to ensure that they're just to be sure. I don't think there's going to be action this year. I think any action next year. That's it for me. Happy to answer any questions. We continue to feel positive about it overall. We're in a good position. And actually, I'd ask you, Mary, anything you'd like to have?
No, Gunnar, thanks for that. Again, I think we had a good meeting with Representative Losi and 2 other representatives that were there that had interest in the region. So I was optimistic about that. I think we heard from Representative Losi that they do want to try to help us if all possible. So I'm optimistic about that. I'm glad to hear that the ag stakeholders want a meeting and to talk about it as well, so. We'll keep, it's as positive I've ever heard it in all the years we've been talking about it. At this point. Let's keep it moving. I think we have some, it truly has some momentum right now. Great. Yep. Thanks.
One second answer.
Have you met with Farm Bureau yet?
So Joe, the last time we had this conversation, he was waiting for was whether or not Egg Stable Farm Bureau was in the room for the follow-up discussion. That is still an open question. I do anticipate getting that when they get back to me. I can tell you that they were in the discussions in December when we talked to them, that they're in a Egg Stable group that is an area where we want to continue with our engagement.
Thanks.
Yeah, just tying the southeast connector, I was, with that Des Moines industrial down there. Southeast connector getting through to the bypass certainly pushes pressure to make that an interstate, so.
Yes.
Thank you. Let's not forget to use that.
All right. Thank you, guys.
I'm gonna have to.
Item 16 is reporting on the water trail, Todd.
Yeah, thank you. Some of the work that's been completed in the past 2 weeks is 10,000 tons of riprap has been hauled from the quarry in Plano, Iowa. And 1,200 tons of boulders have been hauled from Redwood Falls, Minnesota, and stored at off-site at a location. I think it's actually the snow storage for Des Moines, so we appreciate the city's help there. The construction office has been set up and is operational. All the clearing and grubbing has been completed. Icon has installed a construction camera, which will be operational here shortly. That camera is installed on top of the Eagle View lofts. I'll show a picture here in a second. We'll continue to haul rock to the storage sites. Contractors preparing the dewatering plan and working with DNR to get those finalized. And then hopefully, once the Corps finishes their sedimentation survey at Saylorville, they'll start holding back more water and we can get in and do some of the initial modifications. One to the dam and then pull out some old piers that are in the water. Next slide, please. Oh, this is the view from the back one.
Sorry.
This is the view from that Eagle View lofts. You can see the clearing of the grubbing there on both sides of the bank. There's some levee work going on the near bank here. That's going to be completed end of June or July. Next slide. This is the storage area. You can see the riprap on the left and the boulders on the right. So you'll continue to see those piles grow. Happy to answer any questions. Also have Gabe Nelson from Snyder and Associates, our construction engineer, online. He can answer questions as well if you have any.
Questions? All right, item 17, report on legislative update, Dylan.
Yeah, a very brief update on the federal process. The appropriations, the federal budget process and appropriations is underway. The president has sent their proposal, the administration sent the proposal to Congress back in March. So now Congress is working on that. As we spoke to last month, there were earmark requests or community funded projects requests that have gone into the congressional members that will all be part of that as well. It sounds like in the president's budget there, just to back up a second, there was the infrastructure bill that was passed a couple of years ago now. It outlined what was authorized. So now they're trying to figure out what's being appropriated. It sounds like in the president's budget and what likely will be appropriated will be less than what was in the authorization bill. Part of that is because the mechanism that moves forward the transportation funding is also tied to housing. It's the Transportation Housing and Urban Development Bill. The housing sector is seeing less money coming into that account than what was anticipated, and there's only so much they can cut from housing, so the next cut would come from transportation. There was some advanced appropriations done in the reauthorization bill, though, that will keep some programs okay. A lot of the raise funding was put forward in what they call advanced appropriations. So those funds will be okay, but there's a few other funding programs in the infrastructure bill that will see a reduced amount of funding or no funding at all in this most recent budget, at least what's being proposed right now. We'll stay on top of this as things move forward and let you know when we're out in DC. That's going to be a good time where we can talk to the congressional members and encourage them to make things the way we think they should be done as far as the funding levels and so forth. But right now, this is what we have for you.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. Upcoming events, Al.
Not too many right now, we're just here just for the summer, really. So one affordable housing unit is next week. One thing that was in your packet that's not on here, there were some state DOTs out there using their carbon reduction strategy. I just got the email for those recordings, so I'll put that in our policy agenda as well, so you have links to that. But just otherwise, so there's some utility considerations if you're looking towards the EVs. And then TRB has 2 conferences that they've already announced, one for this summer in Cedar Rapids, and then one in November, really looking at the extreme weather and climate change impact on our infrastructure. That's it for me, unless you have any questions.
Thanks, Allison. Questions? All right, we have to vote to approve the MPO policy committee agenda. I do note then, based on what we did on the climate reduction grant opportunity, that's item 13 on the proposed agenda. So I would ask for a motion to approve the agenda with the deletion of that item.
Move second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Abstentions. All right, that carries. Todd, do you have anything further for today?
Yeah, we've got 2 items. I'll let Gunnar go first.
In August, you authorized us to begin rebuilding or actually building a new website to replace the website here that is rather dated at this point. I inherited that 8 years ago and it was a mess then. It's gotten better since then. But during the last quadrennial review, they suggested that we had make some updates. So we are now to the point where we're making those updates. As part of that, we're updating digital assets. The primary one being is a new logo. We're updating that to make it scalable. What I mean by that is scalable to different digital platforms. The current logo doesn't scale very cleanly. And so what we've come up with is this guy right here. Implementation is going to be very incremental. We're going to start with bits and pieces, but you'll probably start seeing these as we start to implement them. We're not going to do a big reveal, big change or anything, but this is what you're going to start to see. We did review this with Mayor Andewig and his better half, who gave me really great advice. But anyway, just want to make sure you had awareness of your research.
Any questions? Thanks, guys. Todd?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to update the committee on related to our transload project and the build grant and all of the work that MPO staff did with that. As part of our agreement with Des Moines Industrial, they agreed to reimburse the MPO for staff time for managing the grant and helping them through that process. We sent the initial invoice was due kind of 2 years after work had begun, and so that date was last year in June. But we'd worked with them and the board to delay sending that invoice to them just to give them some more time to get their feet under them. So we sent that invoice in October then for asking for the first payment. The invoice amount is around $8,000. That's being billed essentially quarterly for the next several years. Followed that up with several emails and voicemails. Finally, in February, we received a response asking for some more information on the invoice. We provided that. Got an email back in March saying they still had questions and wondered about the intent of the agreement. So we're working through those issues. I just wanted to give you an update of where we're at with that.
Thanks. Any questions? Before we conclude, just bear with me a second. I want to apologize again. I'm gonna apologize to Joe. I'm gonna apologize to everybody in this room. Been in public service for a lot of years. You know, in Urbandale, we recite the church account statement before every meeting, and above all, we may have passionate disagreements about issues. But 2 things I'm certain of is everybody in this room cares passionately about this organization. But occasionally we're gonna have disagreements on how we get there. But one thing we should always do is be respectful to each other, and I violated that. And I should have had the tirade, and I can count on one hand in the 20+ years I've been in public service that's happened, and I regret it every time. So I apologize again, and apologize to Joe.
No need to apologize, Bob. I mean, we both got heated, and I apologize to you and everyone in this room. You know, You know, I gotta say to that, it's never happened as an elected official and well, maybe one time with Mayor County, but.
But listen,
That might have been a long time ago.
I can count on one hand, but at the end of the day, we all care about the
We do.
organization.
We do.
We may have passionate disagreements about how we get there, but let's all do it respectfully, and I will vow to do that in the future, to do it
Agreed.
respectfully moving forward, so. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Who's paying for my extra parking? Is that